Hey watch friends, Zelos has been putting out watches at a frenetic pace, and today we're going to look at their latest. This is the Zelos Swordfish 40, and this is the titanium variant. The Swordfish 40 was, as the name denotes, the 40mm follow-up to the prior model, which was the Swordfish, now 42. So we checked this out previously, and we actually looked at the stainless steel model as well as the bronze model. And do stay tuned to the channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I will actually have a follow-up video to this one coming that will compare all three of the variants there. But today we're going to look at some comparisons. This should tell you hopefully everything you'd want to know about this before this officially goes live for launch, so that way you know that you're making an informed decision. So let's go ahead and first take a look at the packaging. If you haven't yet seen the current Zelos packaging, here's what you can expect. On the outside, you're going to have this nice slipcover, branded there. When you slide that off, inside, you're going to have this wooden box, and it is thinner than the old style. We've looked at this before, and it does have magnetic closure, still hinged and going to open up there. And then within, you'll have this nice pouch. This is a travel pouch here. You can see it is embossed and branded. Zipper pouch on the side. This is not a hard construction, but it provides adequate protection. When you flip this open, it does have space for holding 4 watches. You would just put these one down, one up, one down, one up going through. And then you also have your warranty card. And this is still the nice tried and true 1-year Zelos warranty card. All right, now that we have a better feel for what you get or how the watch ships to you, let's talk about the actual specs of the watch. This one is going to be coming in. It's going to be very similar specs to the stainless steel in particular, but also similar to the bronze. This is going to be a 40mm case, and that's roughly from the 3 to the 9. Going up to the 2 to 8, so just above the integrated crown guards here, that takes it up to about 41mm. And then at the bezel, this sits just slightly proud here. This is going to come in at 40.3mm there, so you can see just that little bit of edge that hangs over there. The lugs are going to be a strap change friendly 20mm. The lug to lug is going to be a small wrist friendly 45.6mm. Sorry, I got stammered there. 45.6mm on that one. Including these male end links, that does bump you up to 50.4, but as we'll see, on my small 6.5-inch wrist, it still fits plenty fine without any overhang. Really like the way this wears a lot. The thickness on this is going to be 12.3mm, and that does include this flat sapphire crystal, and as is standard for them, it does include an inner AR. The movement is going to be the same as the prior versions. This includes a Seiko NH35, which if you're not familiar, it does have hacking, hand winding, all the things you'd want there, though it is not a high beat movement. The water resistance is going to be the same as the prior ones as well. This is coming with 200 meters or 20 atmospheres of water resistance. And then the weight. One of the big things with being titanium, just as we saw recently with the titanium Mako, want to see how much of a reduction did we get. Comparing the 3 variants here, this titanium on this bracelet, sized to my 6.5-inch wrist, is coming in at roughly 115 grams. Comparing that to the stainless steel, that one was coming in at 147.2, also sized of course, and the bronze was coming in at 163.7 grams. So as you can see, it's a significant jump down from the bronze to the stainless, and then from the stainless to the titanium. However, give you a little bit of a spoiler for the review, I do still feel that this has a very substantial feel on the wrist, not heavy by any means, but it feels solid, and the same is true in hand as well. So we'll look at that more throughout. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the options that come in this specific batch. This is actually going to come with 8 colors, so you have 8 different options to choose from here. The one we're looking at today is what I would describe as kind of a slate blue color. That's what I proposed as the name. It hasn't been named as of a publishing, or as a recording, I should say, but we'll see if that one gets adopted. There's also, all new for the lineup, there is going to be a red meteorite. There is a titanium with vertical brushing. There's a double forged carbon, which we saw on the 42 model, and we'll look at here today as well. There is a green, a salmon, a sand, and a frost, in addition, of course, to the one that we're looking at today. So quite a lot of options to choose from. The frost, in case you're not aware, does have a full lume dial. All right, so let's look at this specific one in more detail here. The textures on each of these different variants is going to vary from a matte to a sunburst. You have different textures on each of them. This particular one, and as I'm calling it, the slate blue, and the reason for that being, you'll see throughout. It picks up, sometimes it looks more blue, sometimes it looks more gray. It has a lot going on for it. But this one does have a nice pronounced sunburst texture to it. This one does not have a fume, so you'll see it's a nice even color throughout across the dial. as we just talked about, it does have a huge color shift. So depending on the lighting, the angle, how you're moving around, sometimes it looks a very dark gray, sometimes light gray, sometimes blue. You've got a lot going on. The dial configuration is going to be similar to what we've seen on the other Swordfish models. Almost all of them come with a sandwich dial. Some of the earlier variants with Meteorite had an overlay dial, but for the most part, it's going to be a sandwich configuration. This does have the applied logo at the 12 o'clock position, and it does have printed text down at the 6 o'clock, which is going to give you the model name, as well as it will tell you the water resistance. Out to the perimeter there, you do have the typical Zelos chapter ring for the Swordfish model, and it does have your minute markers. Shifting over to the hardware, this one does come with full polished hardware, and these are what I would describe as kind of a paddle shape with some cathedral touches on the minute hand there. They also, it might be hard to see, but they do have nice facets out to the edge. And that's not something that's new for this model, but I do want to highlight it there because I think it's very attractive and I think it complements this overall design well. The second hand is somewhat of a shovel shape, and it does have a red tip out to the perimeter to make for better legibility. All of the hands here are going to have C3 applied for lume, and that is true even of the second hand. This one does not have a contrast there. Additionally, you'll see that this one does have BGW9 around the perimeter, so for your chapter ring. So you do have a nice contrast. And then on the bezel, that one does have C3 as well. In typical Zelos fashion, this thing is an absolute lume monster. It glows brightly. I personally love the way that it glows with a subtle green against that bluish colored dial. I've liked it on prior versions as well, including my Ice Mako, and I think it looks really quite fantastic. So excellent job there as always. I don't think I've ever complained about Zelos lume, except maybe the Nova, but even that was fine for the style of watch. Shifting over to the bezel, this one does have, again, similar to the others, a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Let's go ahead and check out that action. As you can see, it does have a very pronounced click, and it's not as hard to push as I was making it look there. I just didn't have a good grip on it. I will say, it is a little bit smooth, and it's true for the other variants as well. With this particular texture, as opposed to having kind of a knurling or a coin edge to it, it is a little hard to grip, especially with wet hands, but the action is quite nice. As you can hear, very, very pronounced, but not, in my opinion, overly stiff. I think it feels good. And the bezel alignment is solid there as well. No backplay to note of any significance. I think it settles in and is a good bezel action. No grittiness either, which is important for titanium. This one does have the titanium bezel, and this particular variant does have a titanium insert as well, though that does vary by the specific model that you're looking at. Some of them do have either forged carbon or ceramic inserts as well. This particular one, as you can see, does have circular brushing going around there, which I think gives a nice clean appearance. We already saw that this does have lume applied to each of your numerals here. At the 12 o'clock position, you can see it does have an accented triangle there. So nice pip. And I like the way that integrates in. I think it sets it apart and does give a nice little accent to make it more visually appealing. Overall, we talked about the action. Nothing really to complain about there. Shifting over to the case. This one, unlike the Mako that we recently looked at, this one is still going to be grade 2, so similar to most of the other Zelos models, but this one is uncoated. That was, we'll talk about it more. That was a cost-saving measure here for it to keep a low price point, and we'll talk about price point, and certainly it is low for what you're getting here. But that's something that I personally did really like on the Mako, and I'm a little bit disappointed to see that didn't carry forward. On the side here, you can see this does have vertical brushing, and then it does have nice chamfered edges at both the top and bottom. The brushing does stay linear on the lugs, but you can see it does shift over. It almost looks like radial because it does follow the length of the lugs, but to my eye, it appears to be still linear there for that, just changing the direction, which I think was a nice touch. Unlike something I've seen on other Swordfish models where this has been polished, this is actually, it looks like a bead blasted texture here, which I think really adds to the overall cool look. And this, with being titanium, does have that gunmetal hue to it, and it is a little more temperature neutral and everything that you would expect for titanium if you're familiar with titanium. And if not, well, now you know what to expect for that, comparing that to like a stainless steel. Shifting over to the lugs, as you can see, these do have a nice downturn, though they do pretty much spot on align with the case back, so I think that's good for both smaller and larger wrists. The lugs themselves do have a nice compound cut, so you of course have that edge we talked about there. You've got here for this face, you have nice transition there, and then cutting in, this is signature of the Swordfish as well. It does cut down and in, which I think looks great. I love the overall K shape here for this one, and I particularly have grown very fond of the 40mm variant over the 42, but again, with my smaller wrist, that makes sense. All right, shifting over to the crown side here, you can see that this does have integrated crown guards. In the overall finishing, you can see it does carry over that blasting, as well as the mix of getting your brushing along the side. The crown itself, this is going to be coming in at 6.4mm, so a decent size. I found this grip is plenty sufficient, so I think that works out well for it, and I think it's proportionately sized well to the watch itself. This, as you might expect for a dive-style watch, is going to be a screw-down crown, and as you already saw there, this is signed, though unlike some other models, this one is not a loomed crown, so that is only signed. So easy to grab, smooth movement, no issues with the threads or anything there, nothing to complain about on that one. Shifting over to the case back, let's go ahead and pop this open and take a better look. You can see this does keep the signature Swordfish on the back here. It's going to be a mix of textures for this. So you're going to have your matte, of course, as you can see here pronounced. You're going to have your polished for the actual Swordfish, and then you're going to have brushing around the perimeter as well. The stamping in this, and this is stamped, not milled to my, as is my understanding, this is very smooth. So you're not going to have any sharpness on the back. You do have just a little bit on the perimeter, but nothing that I feel on wrist whatsoever. But the Swordfish itself, despite having all those sharp cuts, has no sharpness whatsoever to the touch. And as you can see, let's go ahead and pan that around there. This does just have basic text. As with the other Zelos models, it will have the number, so you can see the total batch of this particular colorway is going to be 300, and this is 297 of 300, so I almost got the tail end of the run. And actually, with that, I was completely remiss. You might have seen at the beginning of the video where I popped up the paid promotion for this. Zelos did provide this watch to me. I do not have to send this one back. I apologize, we're so late into the video for hitting that. I just got so excited here, ran away with that one, but I did want to mention this has been provided to the channel. Of course, you saw the pop-up as well, but I always like to be very upfront about that. Okay, so switching back over to the bracelet and getting ourselves back on track for where we should have started. For the bracelet on this one, it's going to be very similar to the stainless model. You are going to have still the linear brushing that goes down the length. This does have that matte texture does carry over, so that blasted texture on the chamfers, so as opposed to the polishing on the stainless models. This one is going to be a 20mm, and it does taper down to approximately 18. I get just under at 17.9, but 18mm roughly for that one. The articulation on this is simply fantastic. This thing is what I would describe as a complete and total wrist hugger. As you can see here, it does have very small links, and as you're seeing there too, that does have great light play that goes along with that. So it has nice facets. Those facets pick up the different lighting. You have the different surface areas here as you go, and with those tiny links that articulate so freely throughout, this thing really is just a pleasure to look at as you move your wrist around. Shifting over to the clasp itself, unlike the bracelet, which this bracelet and the case are going to be that grade 2 titanium, the clasp is going to be stainless steel. As you can see, this is a fold-over construction with double pushers, and this is, of course, signed, and this is back to the original style where it does have the mixed texture, so you've got matte in the middle, polish for this, though I don't really feel much in the way of sharpness at all, and then you do have brushed edges for shininess on the exterior there as well. Popping this open, you can see that this does have a milled bridge. It has a nice smooth action, clicks shut easily there, and it does have 6 micro adjustment holes. So as always, this is very similar to the prior, and ultimately it's a nice execution of the clasp. So now that we have a better feel for this watch itself, let's go ahead and bring in some comparison models. I wanted to take this from some different angles. First, we recently looked at the Mako in the titanium variant, and I raved about how much I like that one. I will say I like this one a lot too. Just as with the Mako, I probably have to say, if I was in the market for one today, I'd probably go with the titanium variant over the stainless. I do love the bronze too, though, for that. Comparing weights on this one was coming in at 120.6, again, versus this one at 115. I'll restate that, 115 for this, for all the benchmarks, but 120.6 for the Mako. And that's the titanium. Looking at the 42 millimeter version, and this one does have the toolless clasp and some different things going on, larger bracelet, that kind of stuff. It doesn't bump up the weight hugely. This is coming in at 132.4 grams for the 42 versus this variant, and that one was uncoated as well. Comparing it to another 40 millimeter diver, this is the RZE Endeavor. This one's coming in at a featherweight, 97.5, and you can absolutely hugely feel the difference. It doesn't sound that enormous, of about 18 grams or so, but you can very much feel the difference between these two. Even with the pillow, this one you can tell is lighter compared to this one. Now, I wanted to go ahead and look at some difference so you can see for some color here. One that came to mind immediately was this Ice Mako. But as you can see, once you actually get them next to each other, they're not close at all. This is closer to the Zelos Sky Blue that you saw, if you've seen that Mako, than it is the Ice Blue. But it does have some of the kind of color change and some of the dynamicness of that. The one that I have that is closest is going to be to this Second Hour Mandala. This is the silver blue color, but as you can see, this one is much darker for it, and it does tend, whereas this one takes on a silver, this takes on more of a dark gray, and then this goes over to still like a powder blue color, but this one is much more of like a baby blue, much more subtle for that. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of the coloration. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with some closing thoughts. I wanted to address the positives, some of my critiques, as well as my overall summary. First, for the positives. I've got to say, everything that I loved about the prior Swordfish, and particularly the Swordfish 40, I love on this one. It's exactly what you would expect. It's well executed. It is a lighter weight, though I still feel it's plenty adequate. I personally am a big fan of titanium, so I like that a lot. So overall, I think this is a great option. The dials on this, I think each dial variant is very attractive, seeing that exciting new red meteorite for the brand, as well as the linear brushed for that rugged look for the titanium. Really cool options. And I've got to say, though, this one, while it wasn't my first pick, I really like it a lot. I think it looks absolutely great. You can see, I didn't mention it earlier, but this does have the date window at the 6 o'clock position. It is color matched for each of the variants. Just great execution all the way around. The finishing, as is true with basically every Zelos I've handled, the finishing is just excellent for the price that you're getting this for. And let's go ahead and jump to the price. These ones are going to be launching for the standard dials at $329, which to me, I think you get a heck of a lot for your money. Yeah, it's an NH, I know some people will lament that, but I think in a titanium, overall the quality of the finishing, the attractiveness of the dials, I think you're getting a heck of a lot for your money. Another thing I mentioned here, I'm getting too excited. This one does have screw links, which you probably expect if you're familiar with Zelos, but I did want to hit that one as well and overlook that. So just little touches all the way around that just make it fantastic. Comfort on the wrist, I think, is excellent. It hugs the wrist well. I think it would work well for larger wrist without having downturned lugs that come too much and dig in, but it's still overall, I think, is suited to pretty much any wrist depending on your size preference. It's light yet solid, as we talked about earlier on. It still has that stout feel, so if you don't like a real light watch, I don't think this one's going to be too far in that direction, though of course your mileage may vary. Titanium is going to be temperature neutral, and I like the gunmetal color that comes with, so that's excellent. Now let's shift over and talk about some of the critiques, because I don't love it all. I already mentioned I would have preferred if this had been coated. Another thing that I would have preferred is if this had the clasp like the 42 version, where you can do the toolless micro adjustment. Both of those, though, come with a price tag. So that would have bumped this up. It would have probably put it closer to the Mako price point, but this wouldn't have had the Miyota movement that the Mako has. So I get why they'd want more differentiation there between the lineup, but there's still two things that I do miss overall, despite the fact that I think this is plenty adequate for what it is. The date window, back to that topic. This one, some people have complained about it before. It does have a lot of depth to it. As you can see, it doesn't have to go that far of an angle before it starts to cut off in the window. It can, depending on the lighting, be just a little bit hard to see down in there. It does pick up some shadowing and that stuff. Very minor issue, but it is something to make note of. And then finally, the quick release pins. We saw new quick release pins that were included on the Mako. This, as best I can tell, is back to the style or kept the same style as the prior SF40. So I will say some people have complained about it digging into the wrist. Unlike the Mako, I can feel this one. It doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me on the prior versions. But if you're one who had a prior version and it did bother you, these things, they pop out. They've got a screw head in them. Unscrew them, pop it out, put some standard quick release or some standard spring bars in there, get rid of the quick release, and you'll be fine. So it's just a little thing to note. So where does that leave us overall? In the end, I've got to say, as is pretty much signature for the Zelos brand. I think this thing's an excellent watch for your value. I think the total package is attractive. It's a unique design. I think it's well executed. The fit, the finish, the total price, everything is just pretty darn good. So with that, I hope this has been helpful for you in making your decision for the launch. If you did like this video, please do remember to hit that like button. And if you haven't already done so, please do hit that subscribe button. That is greatly appreciated and does help out the channel. Additionally, if you want to find me in another medium, you can find me on Instagram in the description. And finally, if you're looking to help me out, you can use any of my Amazon affiliate links, and it does get me a small commission. Thanks for watching.